Good morning, church family. It's nice to see you. Welcome to Healthline. We're having another presentation for Healthline, and Healthline is a ministry that is really meant to help each person in this church understand our health better and to help understand the people around us better and to minister better to them. We're grateful that you're here today to join us for Healthline. My name is Jarrod Purkeypile. I'm a speech-language pathologist, and that truly means that I do everything with language and speech and lots of things in between, and I'll describe some of that later. Okay, I do work mostly with children personally who have speech and language difficulties. Those would include stuttering and language difficulty learning language, difficulty understanding social skills, reduced ability to produce clear speech, so articulation and phonology, all the jargon that I like to use. So some of the disorders that I've encountered, it's not simply people who have, sorry I missed it, not people simply who have speech issues or something, but sometimes it actually has an underlying disorder, maybe Rett syndrome, Down syndrome, things like that, Prader-Willi syndrome, traumatic brain injury, aphasia from a stroke or some other kind of incident. But I personally spend a lot of my time just working with kids who haven't met their developmental milestones for one reason or another. And so I'm basically a communication therapist. If you want to think about the most easy way, is just think any kind of communication issue, I can be working with that. So, like I said, stuttering or difficulty being understood. Okay. Other areas that a speech pathologist might work in that you may not think of would be feeding, which would be chewing and swallowing. If someone has difficulty, especially after maybe a stroke or even born with cleft palate or things like that, speech pathologists can work in that area and help them as they're building those muscles, building that system of muscles and tendons and things. But the majority of the time that I spend would be kids who maybe is a 2 to 3 year old who doesn't talk at all. And so they've missed their milestones. Also, maybe a 9-year-old who has having trouble saying their R sounds, their L sounds, their TH sounds, and so they're kind of difficult to be understood. But even if you can understand them, they might stick out among their peers and say, oh, well, that child kind of needs to work on some of those sounds. Or a 19-year-old maybe who is having trouble fitting in with their peers because they don't quite understand all of the social intricacies and those hidden rules that we have in our society. Also maybe a 6-year-old who isn't able to follow 3-step instructions and is still needing help with grammar structures and is kind of missing some of those ands and thes, those kinds of things. Let's see. My next slide is that I have another role that I have, not just working with kids who are having difficulties with speech, but also kids who are looking for a diagnosis or are needing a diagnosis of autism. That's something that I want to talk to you a little bit more about today. 1 in 36 children has been identified with an autism spectrum disorder. And so this is a diagnosis, a phenomena, I guess, that is becoming more and more seen in the world, partially because we're understanding more about what it is. And so I want to share a little bit more about that. But 1 in 36 children, it used to be when I first started, probably 15 years ago, started hearing more about autism, it was 1 in 65. And so now we're understanding that even more children, more people here in our congregation have an autism, they present with autism. And so I want to just kind of help you understand a little bit more of what that is. Okay? Not Kids Corner. So autism is something that is reported in all different kinds of racial and socioeconomic statuses all around the world. It is not simply one population or one country. This is something that is a phenomena all around the world, and so it's something that each country is looking more into to understand a little bit more. It's something that's 4 times more common in boys than it is with girls, but some research suggests that that statistic of boys having it more often, it could be that girls are a little bit better at masking some of the symptoms, and we aren't quite yet best at understanding what it looks like in girls. Okay. A person's brain, a person with autism has a brain that works differently than the majority of others. So I like to think of it as someone who's using maybe a Mac operating system versus the whole world around them is working on a Windows system. They would say, well, that's not how things work. That's not how we do it. Why are you doing it that way? And so we can look at it that way as having a difference. And if that difference is so great, an autistic person might demonstrate behavior that's very different from the people around them, or maybe almost unnoticeable among the people around them, except for the people that knew them the best and truly can see that difference on a day-to-day basis. It's sometimes difficult to understand how a person with autism makes their decisions and changes, because they're working on a different operating system, and their brain is a little bit different. So it's easy, if you don't know much about autism, it's easy to think of the most extreme or negative behaviors as that person's normal day all the time, right? And I think that that's the same with, it's the same with someone who has a different kind of mental illness or something. You think, oh, well, a person who has schizophrenia is always in a schizophrenic state. Well, that's not true. They have days just like you and I. The good days are good, the bad days are bad, or the bad moments, and we have a normal baseline behavior as well. And so a person who has autism has their highs and lows, and what might be different is how that they react to positive or negative emotions. And so that's what we have to try to understand. Okay? It's difficult to describe autism, but there are ways to make a diagnosis, which is you have a list of certain criteria within the social communication and interaction, and also restricted and repetitive behaviors. Those are the ways that we can kind of help understand, okay, this is how a person with autism is different than a person who doesn't. Okay? Some of the common behaviors that you'll see, you take this 6-year-old boy and this 6-year-old girl, each person could be very different. Autism is described as a spectrum because of this slide here. These 2 children could be the same age, they could even be the same gender, but they may present with very different characteristics, such as one might be nonverbal, vocalizing a lot but not saying actual words, just saying ha ha, or some sort of repetitive voice, waving their fingers in front of their face, and that's how this person regulates their body, that's how this person communicates, and that's how they work on a daily basis. But another child, maybe possibly the same age, may be very social. They go around hugging everyone, even if they're strangers, and asking everyone's name every single time that they see them. They have to say hi, or they have to ask their name. And that's something that would fit both of them into the criteria of having autism. Okay? So it truly is based off of the number of behaviors and the criteria, if they meet the criteria for a certain number of behaviors within the social communication and also in the restrictive and repetitive behaviors. Unfortunately, not enough is known about the causes of autism, but there is a theory that I have heard that has really helped me understand a difference in how a person who has autism is affected. It's called the polyvagal theory. I'm going to go to that real quick. Let's go to the next one. Here it is. The polyvagal theory suggests that the body's fight, flight, or freeze response is switched to the on position, right? At all times. If that is true, can you imagine if you're in the wild and a bear comes up to you, what's going to happen? You could possibly just freeze, or you could get into the, oh, I'm going to run away and escape, or you could get into the fight, I'm going to try to fight this bear to save my life, right? So what happens? Your pupils dilate, your heart starts to race, maybe you scream, maybe you shake, or you have auditory sensation that is heightened or even lessened. Maybe your tactile, your feeling is heightened or decreased because you're getting ready, your adrenaline is rushing. And so in this state, your body has changed to defend itself. And so the theory says that possibly for people with autism, they have either this fight, flight, or freeze switched on all the time, or for part of the time, kind of up and down and off and on. And so if that is true, can you imagine? Can you imagine always being ready for a fight or being ready to run away, to panic? This is a theory that has helped open my eyes to understand, you know what? That would be very difficult to live with. And it would take a lot of understanding from the people around me, and it would take understanding for myself to try to regulate those emotions and those changes in my body. So I hope that helps you understand it as well. Okay. If your brain was constantly in fight, flight, or freeze mode, could you focus on anything else during the day? It would take a while. And so that's why I wanted to have this presentation, to help you understand the patience that can be helpful. Now, I have a question. Does anyone here know someone who has an autism diagnosis? Or someone who you suspect maybe that person might be on the spectrum? Okay? A lot of us do. It goes back to the number of 1 in 36 children has an autism, it presents with autism. There are lots of people who do. And so I wanted to talk a little bit today about how we can help someone who has autism, or how we can help the family. So when Jesus was on earth and he was walking around, he was seeing people who had leprosy. Leprosy was a disease that was very misunderstood, and what they understood was, oh no, we better not touch that person because I'll get it and then I will have trouble. So Christ would go up to someone with autism, or with leprosy, or with blindness, someone who the rest of the world would not understand, and they would say, oh no, I'm afraid. He wouldn't say that. He would go up to them and he would minister to them. So my prayer today is to help you understand a little bit more, and to embolden you to be confident to go up and get to know someone who has autism, get to know a family and provide some support. Okay? So how can we help? I would just say be kind and treat them as just you would another friend. Adapt to how they are and ask them what you can do to give them what they need, right? You would do the same thing with another friend. Be patient, be kind, be understanding. Okay? And what about helping parents who have kids who have autism, right? If we see something that's different and odd to us, if we feel awkward, guess what? The best thing we can do is still be interested, not make them feel left out, and give them the chance to learn about their child with autism and their special needs, right? One of the things on our list, you can read some of these off, but one of the things I would suggest is just offer, what can I do? Can I buy their favorite snack? That'll make their kid's day, and that might change your relationship with them. Getting on the level of taking away our worriedness about being in an awkward situation. That's what Christ did all the time. I wanted to share a couple verses, and then I'll be finished. This verse says, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you'll be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will.